Hey everyone, it's the Koopa Man. In a previous video, we talked a little bit about the problem with letting headcanons run wild and free, and how it creates misconceptions to fandom outsiders. In that video, I mentioned sometimes that the official sources do adopt headcanons into their works, and cited Ermac and Scarlet from Mortal Kombat as examples. This time, we're gonna break down this phenomenon of franchises adopting fan headcanons into their lore, settings, and characters, and how it's not always a good thing. To start, let's recap what headcanons are. For more details, please watch my previous video on headcanons, but to summarize, a headcanon is a part of a media franchise or lore or characterization that is purely speculatory in the heads of the fans. It isn't true canon and is part of the whole consequence of interpretation of art and media being in the eye of the beholder. Sometimes, fans see things differently than the author intended, such as with the Ray Bradbury novella Fahrenheit 451, which, while it's so obviously about book burning and censorship, the author's intent for the story was to be a screed about how radio killed the literary star. Now, while Ray Bradbury went to his grave a stubborn old man yelling at clouds, not every creator is like that. Sometimes creators do listen to the fans' interpretations of things and either notice it was similar to their intentions or superior and go with them. One such example being Super Saiyan Blue. It was originally and officially called Super Saiyan God Super Saiyan in promotional material, until they realized people aren't actually gonna call it that. So in both the anime and the manga for Dragon Ball Super, it gets hand-waved into being officially called Super Saiyan Blue, a popular fan term, instead of what it was for simplicity's sake. And remember that one scene from DS9 I showed in the Retcons video? That too was based on fan theories onto why the Klingon makeup after the franchise got a major budget upgrade made them look so different. The Great Tribble Hunt was included in that theory as well. They could have easily hand-waved it with a meta explanation that this is what the Klingons were always intended to look like, but didn't due to budgetary reasons. But instead they used a web of fan theories to give a bit of fan service into the retcon. And that's what Ascended headcanons are at the end of the day. Fan service, for better or worse. Sometimes it's a wink and a nudge to the audience that, hey, you guys had some neat ideas, or you guys sure did figure out what we planned really well, but when it's used poorly, it comes off as the desperate gasps of a franchise in peril. One need only look into the ascension of the canon of Kurosami from Legend of Korra or Bumblebee from Ruby to see that. But we went over both in that one shipping video I did. What I said there still stands. Both franchises were losing fans, so they adopted popular, read AstroTurfed, LGBTAAIP LMNOP ships to both hide behind a rainbow shield from criticism, as well as to appease Tumblrinas and Redditors in the fanbase to not throw them away. Truly, the idea of using fans' ideas instead of your own can be a double-edged sword. On the one hand, fans do like being acknowledged. Franchise interaction is always the best part of any fandom, especially when creators engage wholeheartedly with their fans. On the other hand, when some franchises neglect the fans and try to pander to certain parts of the fanbase over others, it comes off as rather douchey and cynical. Like they're being picky about who gets to be a fan of their franchise, or like they're desperate to look good in front of the right people, desperate for their approval. Ultimately, being the kind of theater kid vanity of using fans as pawns to further one's own social position. Hence why the promotion of Kurosami and Bumblebee were so viciously rejected by the actual scorned fans of both franchises. Not just because they came out of nowhere with no foreshadowing and only works using cool-mouthed porn brain logic, but also because they were done cynically to virtue signal off certain protected groups of people. Need I remind you that Blake and Yang's actresses did an OnlyFans lingerie shot to celebrate their coming out of the closet. For those not in the know, OnlyFans is a paid porn service. Though, like with any trope, Ascended headcanons can be good or bad depending on how they're used. It's all in the motivation of the user. Going back to Mortal Kombat, it was actually fan speculation and headcanons that the Shadow Ninja character, Noob Saibot, was the Phantom of the original Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat 1. Not the new one, the original one. To those not in the know, the Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat 2 onwards was his brother, Kuo Liang, and the original was Bi-Han. This was because he first appeared in Mortal Kombat 2 as a bonus boss like Smoke and Jade, and was fought in a stage from Mortal Kombat 1. And like all the ninja bonus bosses, he used Sub-Zero and Scorpion's movesets until he was given one of his own. It wouldn't be until Mortal Kombat Deception, which would give Noob Saibot this lore for real, with Ed Boon and John Tobias not really thinking that deeply about the character until then. Noob Saibot was originally just a reptile-style bonus boss, one that'd be an utter secret relative to the other two. He didn't even really have a character in the 2 appearances he had since Mortal Kombat 2. He was just a specter. That was the beginning and end for him until Mortal Kombat Deception adopted the headcanon. There was also the fan theory that there was a hidden stage fatality in the Hidden Forest stage in Mortal Kombat 2 that was not in the game at all, but it was made into a stage fatality when the game was revisited in Mortal Kombat 9.
Finish him. Yeah. Jax wins. Flawless victory. Fatality.
The team making Mortal Kombat have no problems giving fan service from time to time, and the series never takes itself too seriously, so having these kinds of ascended headcanons and Easter eggs is really quite the treat. Mortal Kombat isn't the only franchise like that though. Pokemon has also adopted a number of fan canons and fan terms, such as the term shiny Pokemon. Originally, differently colored Pokemon were just that, differently colored. The sparkle effect was because Pokemon Gold and Silver were still playable on the Game Boy Monochrome. But seeing the Pokemon was a different color was a feature that was exclusive to the Game Boy Color, sort of a perk for playing it on the newer hardware. As the sparkle effect stayed into the new generations, people adopted the term shiny, and eventually in 2010 the term shiny was officially used, with terms like alternate color and shining being used beforehand. There was also from Gold and Silver a fan canon that the rival character, Silver, was the son of the boss of Team Rocket, Giovanni. Though it was a tenuous connection at best, Game Freak decided to hint at it in Fire Red and Leaf Green, and in the Pokemon Adventures manga it's outright stated to be the case before finally, in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, remakes of Gold and Silver, it was made fully canon to the game's continuity through a special Celebi event. Of course, not every video game ascended headcanon is a good one. The DS version of Chrono Trigger adopted the fan headcanon that Dalton was the head of the charge of Pora against Guardia in Chrono Cross, which was stupid as Dalton was an incompetent buffoon, and having 2 of the main heroes killed off by him is an outright insult. Oh, and you think that's insulting? The Spider-Man storyline, Sins Past, where Gwen Stacy was revealed to have cheated on Peter Parker with Norman Osborn and having children from that affair, was the result of a fan theory posted on a website that Marvel Editorial decided to run with, and I use the term fan loosely because anyone who would come up with such a theory should not be considered a fan, and it disgusts me that they're even considered a human being. Yeah, not every fan deserves to have their headcanons adopted into canon. In fact, most don't, because like it or not, fans are dumb, dangerous, panicky animals, and you know it.
A person is smart, people are dumb, panicky, dangerous animals, and you know it.
Fans very rarely know what they want, and very often what they claim they want is either bad or not narratively coherent. I mean, if it were up to the fans, Pokemon would have been reduced to an inane competitive tryhard game that nobody but the sweaty tryhards would get any enjoyment out of. And every amusement park in America would have only roller coasters with really tall lift hills and really intense G-forces. Though that's a topic for another video. Stay tuned, it's on the idea pile. To bring this to a conclusion, it's obvious that like any trope, ascending headcanon is all in the execution. Though there are of course a few questions one needs to ask before considering doing it. Question number 1, does it make narrative and character sense? For the case of Noob Saibot being Bi-Han, it was actually really clever, but for Sins Past, it felt like it was done purely out of spite. And of course, those 2 ships we keep mentioning have no narrative sense whatsoever. Question number 2, is it actually a good idea and does it improve the story in any way? Fans aren't really creators most of the time, and nobody knows their own story and characters better than the creator. You shouldn't feel pressured to adopt fan headcanons just to appease the fans, as it's seen as just pandering at that point. Likewise, you shouldn't change your story if the fans guessed elements of where it was going. That's just good media literacy. The Star Wars sequel trilogy and the the DC Comics event Armageddon 2001 are good examples of stories that have been changed to, quote, subvert fan expectations, and in both cases it destroyed the story. Question number 3. Is it really necessary? Sometimes elements being up to the fans to play with and figure out is just part of the fun. J.K. Rowling didn't really need to expand her wizarding world past the British Isles, especially if it's all just mirrors of the European-styled wizards living in European-styled castles all over the world, even in places where it doesn't make sense like the United States. Likewise, Games Workshop didn't really need to reveal what the Terminus Decree was because it added mysticism to the Grey Knights, who didn't really have much to keep me from calling them the space himbos otherwise. Taking all of that into consideration will help you determine when and when not to adopt fan headcanons, and when adopted headcanons are there to be good examples of fan service or just blatant pandering attempts. And blatant pandering is just pathetic. Anyway, that's about all. This has been the Koopa Man. If you like this video, leave a like and subscribe as it helps my channel grow. If you want to see more, be sure to check out my channel as I have a ton of videos you may like. If you have any more examples of Ascended headcanons, be they good or bad, feel free to discuss them in the comments as I'd love to read what you guys have to say, and until next time, game on.